Creating a terraced landscape is the theme here today, and we're in beautiful South Bend, Indiana, and any of those that know South Bend know that there are absolutely gorgeous areas of this town, and this, Mark Linton, is one of them, isn't it?
It is, and the neat thing about this neighborhood is we've got some rolling hills. It is not the typical Michiana flat terrain.
Set up the scenario here a little bit. We'll get into some of the challenges of your work, but Catherine, the homeowner, comes here for the first time from the West Coast. You're introduced to her, and how did you help her?
Well, I always start out asking, what are your favorite plants, trees, and shrubs? I'd kind of like to have some input.
Yeah.
And, you know, the goal is for when they pull up into the driveway, I want to put a smile on their face. So, but she says, well, I can tell you all my favorites, but they don't grow here. She says, I moved here from Portland, Oregon. And I said, well, start naming a few. And so we made a list, and actually what we've got here, the plant palette that we worked with, 100% of what we've got here also grows out on the West Coast
Get
in
out
Oregon.
of town. Isn't that cool?
It's very cool.
I mean, how many places can you turn to that has that kind of background, calling, gifts, and experience that helps a customer like this? This is great. Now, when you came here, the challenge was really the hillside. The landscape here is really a kind of a tough one.
Yeah, it was a challenge. We've got a grade change that slopes away from the house here, and we wanted to hold back that soil. And as you look around the neighborhood, you see other things that people have done to retain their hillside. But because of this beautiful stone that's on the front of the house, we wanted to use our native boulders here. And I really like that type of look.
I like it too. And before we get too far along here, tell me about that redbud. Doesn't look like a redbud.
You know what? We do have our redbuds here naturally. This is not one of our native redbuds. It's a forest pansy redbud, which is a hybrid, features those beautiful burgundy colored leaves spring, summer, and fall.
It is gorgeous right now, and it's going to be gorgeous for 2 or 3 more seasons.
Absolutely.
Wow, great. Well, talk a little more about what you're doing here, Mark.
Well, directly to the viewers left here is a blood-good Japanese maple. Catherine loves burgundy or red colors. We wanted to frame the corner of the house with this dwarf little ornamental tree. Then we've got splashes of gold here with our gold thread cypress, and we didn't want anything that gets too big. We didn't want to cover up the stone on the house.
Right.
Didn't want to hide our boulder walls. But as the grade changes here and it steps down, we want a little bit of height, and so we've got our dwarf burning bush, which are much smaller than the common burning bush, and then these will provide some seasonal color in the fall as they turn bright red.
It's a beautiful craftsman style home, and you're really playing the landscape up against that look, aren't you?
We are.
Yeah.
And this is one of Catherine's requests. This is called a witch hazel, and it's not a real common or well-known tree because it's a winter and early spring blooming tree. Blooms with clusters of kind of frilly type yellow flowers.
So where did you have to go to get all these trees that Catherine wanted that were only on the West Coast? I mean, how far did you have to travel, Mark?
To Bristol, Indiana, where we've got our 40-acre nursery, and we grow all of these.
Oh, so they're all yours, huh?
They are.
Wow,
Yeah.
okay. What else you have going on here?
Well, we're creating a very layered look. I've got these dwarf Russian sage, and they feature these feathery blue plumes which appear about midsummer and then grow all the way until the fall or frost. And these are just a fraction of the size of the common Russian sage.
Very cool, very cool. Is this something that a homeowner could do on his or her own, or would you really recommend the professionals go out and do this kind of
Well, of course,
landscaping?
they can do it on their own if they're qualified like what we are, but
Okay.
Catherine chose us.
Very good. And she chose another maple here. it looks
Beautiful specimen, red Japanese lace leaf maple, little miniature tree, prized for these delicate burgundy colored leaves, which continue to provide color throughout the season.
like.
And then, Craig, we've got down around the base of it, we've got these little dwarf Hinoki cypress. And the neat thing about them is not only their color and their texture, but they repel mosquitoes. And so I like to use around porches and patios because of that.
Yeah, very good. That's an important thing to know this time of year, especially with those mosquitoes, and who knows what kind of bad stuff they're carrying around. Right?
Absolutely.
What else?
So we've got some other unusual evergreens here. I love this little dwarf blue spruce patio tree. It is a short little miniature tree, gives us a nice splash of blue color 12 months out of the year.
Yep, very nice. And then around the edge here?
Well, we are flanking both sides of the entrance here with a very unusual evergreen, and we've featured these on our show before. A lot of our
Bob
guests,
Marley, right?
Yes, it looks like dreadlocks.
Yeah.
But it's called a whipcord arbovita, and has a very soft kind of weeping type of look. Doesn't get real large. We certainly didn't want to hide the stone columns. And then in its full glory there, we've got balloon flower, which is a very unusual perennial. The way it gets its name, Craig, is that the flower buds start out as kind of a balloon shape, and then if you would be here at the right time, they just pop open, and they open up to this beautiful blue color.
That's incredible. That's incredible. All kinds of little hints here and tips to creating a terraced landscape. And Mark, when you talk about the beauty of the terraced landscape, you also have to consider the practicality of what you're doing here. It really makes good sense, doesn't it? To do the layered look and some of the other things.
You know, we wanted to retain the soil. We did not want it to wash away from the foundation. And with those large boulders, that's something that's going to last just as long, if not longer, than the house.
Yeah. Well, very good. Now, you did some treatment on the other side of the driveway, too.
Yes, we did. We're framing the corner of the house with a little dwarf Alberta spruce, and then we have perennial flowers, which will bloom in the spring, again in the summer, and then again in the fall.
Wow, just as you would expect from Linton's Enchanted Gardens. Mark, outstanding job here today.
Thank you, Craig.
And kudos to Catherine for discovering Mark Linton as quick as she arrived here. She gave you a call, and I'm sure she's very happy. Much more coming up on the program. Don't go away. We'll be back in just a moment. Stay tuned.